Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about taking flipped learning online. We're going to define flipped learning, use Talbert's flipped learning model, and bust some myths and apply best practices. This is Kim, an art student who loves to take courses that propel her career. She is not the most tech savvy, but she does well when she can see the value of what she's learning. She struggles when she can't connect with younger students or when she's asked to read and regurgitate. Kim is taking a fully online course. How do you think Kim would do each week if the course was laid out like this? Watch a video, complete 3 readings, answer a question on the discussion board, and then respond to 2 other peers' posts. Like many students, Kim would probably struggle to find value and self-regulate her own learning. It would be a similar experience if we introduced a new topic at the beginning of a face-to-face class, and then expected students to dive headfirst into rich discussion. The problem is, they haven't had enough time to process or let things sink in yet. What if we tried something different online? How about Kim watches a video, completes a couple of readings, does a quick formative knowledge check, and then makes a tweet to the class hashtag. Plus, now she has time to draw and make music. This approach is a great start to flipped learning because Kim is making connections to the material. But we haven't taken advantage of what Talbert calls the group space. In flipped learning, especially in an online environment, it's crucial to have a balance between the individual and the group space. Let's define these terms. In the flipped approach, students first have contact with the course material themselves, so there is time for the material to soak in. This is called the individual space because it's focused on individual efforts. Students can still discuss what they are learning, but the responsibility of their learning basic concepts rests on them. During this time, students need structured and guided practice. Rather than having them only read content, for example, students could watch instructor-created or curated videos, answer questions, complete a short quiz, and so on. While direct instruction is typically used in the individual space, discovery learning, such as case studies and simulations, can also work. The heart of flipped learning is the group space because it supports active learning. This is where students engage in activities that help them learn the hardest concepts, with the support of their peers and the instructor who facilitates and guides their learning. In a typical face-to-face class, the individual space would happen before class time, and then the group space would be during class time. In online, it's a little bit different. Basically, in the individual space, students teach themselves, and then in the group space, they must actively participate instead of passively observe. So why would we want to use flipped learning, and how can it help us design more engaging courses? In online learning, we tend to overemphasize the individual space and pay far less attention to the group space. A benefit of learning online is learning anytime, anywhere, but students still need support, structure, guidance, and feedback. In our earlier example, after Kim watched a video, completed a couple of readings, did a knowledge check, and then made a tweet, these activities could have happened simultaneously. But Kim still hasn't had an opportunity to be in the group space and learn from others. Let's use Kim's example to show how we could design a flipped lesson online and connect the individual to the group space by using Talbert's 7-step model, which you'll notice has ties to constructive alignment and backwards design. Step 1 is to start with the learning objectives. Starting with clear and measurable goals is important. In this case, let's say the goal of the module is to state 3 plain language principles, correct common plain language errors, apply plain language to web copy, and justify the use of plain language. Step 2 has us ordering the objectives from least complex to most complex. So I would structure the objectives from state to justify to correct and finally to application. Step 3, outline your group space activity. In this activity, students will find poor web copy online and make changes to it before getting peer feedback on their efforts. This makes use of the group space because students are working on the hardest part of the lesson together. Step 4, split up the learning objectives. So you want to group the learning objectives as basic or advanced. The basic objectives are important because they help you design the individual space. The advanced objectives are your focus for the group space activity. So in this case, the first 2 learning objectives are basic, and the last 2 learning objectives are advanced. So they would be centered on the group space activity. Step 5, finish the design of your group space activity. Remember, a group space activity is where you engage students in the hardest part of the lesson, where they'll have the biggest potential for deep learning. Our original idea looks good, but before students submit their final web copy for a grade, they can make changes to it based on their peers' feedback. Step 6. Design and construct the individual space activity. By tweeting their explanation and justification of 3 plain language principles, students will receive participation or accountability marks. As part of their summative web copy assignment, students will look at a minimum of 2 other students' tweets and use it as a checklist to ensure they are using plain language principles. Step 7. Design and construct any post-group space activities. Here we could have an opportunity for students to reflect on their learning or extend the activity in some other way. Now let's look at Mythbusters and best practices. Now, there are many approaches to flipped learning, and using Talbert's method is just one way to get you started. The important thing is not to get hung up on the technology. You don't need to create videos to do flipped learning. Your goal is to design the most engaging experiences for students to meet the course goals, to support them, and to look for evidence that the goals have been met. As I was learning about the value of designing online classes using the flipped approach, I found a few key principles to share. Keep these in mind if you flip something in your class, and start with one lesson to keep it manageable. First, structure in ways to provide formative feedback, but make it manageable for you to still teach the class. For example, you can sum up the key ideas from the group space in a weekly announcement. Be intentional with your feedback. We need to help students learn, not catalog what they got right and what they got wrong. Ensure students can ask questions. For example, have an online course FAQ discussion forum where students can ask individual and group space questions. Avoid building a course in a half. That is, you want to be intentional with what's covered. You will probably need to take some content out. Consider the individual and group space together when you design. Online, there are so many options, including synchronous learning. Manage students' cognitive load and only focus on the essentials. Get rid of anything that doesn't serve learning. Thanks so much for joining. Take a look at the references.